The diplomatic shuttle touched down on Varith Station with the gentle hiss of equalizing pressure, and Ambassador Karath 7 of the Valunian Conclave straightened his secondary spinal ridge in preparation for what he privately considered the most tedious assignment of his career: escorting a human. Not negotiating with one, not studying one from a respectful distance, not even arguing policy with one. Escorting, personally, from docking bay to council chambers, through the inner corridors of Varith Station, which happened to run directly past the restricted zoological annex. His aide, a young Valunian named Prest, clicked his mandibles nervously as the shuttle hatch opened. "Ambassador," Prest murmured, "I've reviewed the briefing on human behavioral protocols again. Should we warn her in advance about the annex corridor? The documentation suggests humans have a compulsive response to certain stimuli that." "She is a decorated senior diplomat," Karath 7 said flatly. "She has attended 17 interspecies summits. She does not need to be warned about a corridor." Prest clicked again, but said nothing further. The human descended the shuttle ramp with the unhurried ease that Karath 7 had come to associate with experienced travelers, people who had long since stopped being impressed by the architecture of other civilizations. She was compact by human standards, with short gray-streaked hair and the kind of calm, assessing eyes that suggested she had walked into difficult rooms before and expected to walk out of them. Her name was Elena Vasquez. She carried no weapons, no scanning equipment, no status projectors. Just a small bag over one shoulder and a datapad under her arm. "Ambassador Karath 7, she said, extending one hand in the human greeting gesture. "I've heard good things about your work at the Dravathi Accords." Karath 7 took her hand briefly, as protocol required. "Ambassador Vasquez, the Council is pleased you've made the journey. If you'll follow me, we'll proceed to the briefing chambers directly." She nodded and fell into step beside him. The corridors of Varith Station were wide and tall, built to accommodate the biological diversity of the Conclave's many member species. Prest trailed 2 steps behind, reviewing his datapad with visible anxiety. They moved through the commercial sector, then the administrative ring, and then they turned left at Junction 7, and the corridor changed. The air shifted first. It carried something dense and alive, a complexity of scents layered over each other like geological strata. The lighting dimmed slightly here, calibrated for species with different visual sensitivities. And behind reinforced transparasteel panels set into both walls of the corridor, the inhabitants of the restricted zoological annex became visible. Karath 7 kept his eyes forward and walked at precisely his normal pace. This was the professional approach. This was what one did. Beside him, Elena Vasquez slowed. He noticed it immediately. Not a stop, not a dramatic freeze, just a subtle deceleration in her stride, as if something ahead had caught the edge of her attention and was gently reeling her in. "Ambassador," he said, without turning. "The council chambers are." "What are those?" He stopped. He turned. She was looking at the first panel on the left. Behind it, coiled in the amber-lit warmth of its enclosure, lay a Vorkai. It was roughly the mass of a small ground vehicle, scaled in overlapping plates of dark amber and deep green, with a triangular head the size of a serving table and eyes like molten copper. It was currently watching them with the patient, unreadable attention of a creature that had never in its evolutionary history needed to be afraid of anything. Karath 7 kept his own posture carefully neutral. That is a Vorkai, a predatory reptiloid native to the Shen system. They are classified as Tier 4 threat organisms. The Annex maintains 3 of them for research purposes. We will continue to the... Elena Vasquez had already walked to the glass. Not quickly, not recklessly. She walked the way someone walks towards something they find genuinely beautiful, with a kind of instinctive, undefended interest that bypassed caution entirely. She stopped with perhaps 30 centimeters between her nose and the transparasteel and looked at the Vorkai with an expression that Karath 7 could only describe as delighted. The Vorkai looked back. There was a moment. The creature uncoiled itself, slowly, with the heavy deliberateness of something that weighed as much as a small shuttle, and moved toward the glass. Its copper eyes were fixed on the small human standing on the other side of it. When it reached the barrier, it lowered its massive head until its snout was level with her face. Prest made a small, involuntary sound. Elena Vasquez raised one hand and pressed her palm flat against the transparent steel. The Vorkai exhaled, a long, slow breath that fogged the panel from the inside. Then it pressed its snout against the glass, directly opposite her palm, and held still. "Oh," she said quietly. "Hello." Karoth 7 stood absolutely motionless. In 11 years of working with the restricted annex, he had never seen a Vorkai approach the glass voluntarily. He had never seen one hold still for anything. They moved when they wanted, ate what was provided, and regarded all observers with the same flat, copper-eyed indifference of creatures that had never needed to develop social instincts. "We should," Prest whispered. "We should continue to the chambers." Elena let her hand drop from the glass slowly, gave the Vorkai one more long look, and turned back to the corridor. The second panel was on the right. She saw it from 4 meters away, and her pace changed again. That same gravitational deceleration. Karoth 7 didn't bother trying to redirect her. Behind the second panel lived the station's drawl. It resembled, in the loosest possible sense, an arachnoid, but where most arachnoids were small and quick, the drawl was neither. It had 7 legs, each 3 meters long, a central body mass roughly the size of a Valunian ground car, and a cluster of eyes across its upper surface that could track independently in 17 directions simultaneously. The drawl was the reason most maintenance staff requested reassignment from this corridor. It had never harmed anyone, technically, but it watched. It always watched. And something about the quality of its attention made every species in the conclave deeply, instinctively uncomfortable. Elena Vasquez looked up at it with her head tilted slightly to one side. The drawl descended from its resting position near the ceiling. Slowly, all 7 legs adjusting in careful sequence until it was crouched at eye level with her, its cluster of eyes oriented forward in what Karoth 7 recognized, with genuine professional alarm, as focused attention. She made a soft sound, a short, low, rhythmic sound that Karoth 7 could not immediately identify. Then he cross-referenced his xenolinguistics files and identified it. She was making a sound humans made to calm animals. A clicking, with her tongue. The drawl's front 2 legs lifted slightly off the ground. "She is communicating with it," Prest said, in a tone that suggested he was having a small crisis. "I can see that," Karoth 7 said. She moved on after another minute, and they came to the third panel. The Greth was not large. That was the deceptive thing about the Greth. It was roughly the size of a human torso, covered in something between fur and quills, with a blunt face and 6 small limbs and a bioluminescent pattern along its flanks that pulsed slowly in the amber light. It looked, to the uninformed observer, almost manageable. The Greth was classified Tier 5, the only Tier 5 organism in the Annex. Its designation was not based on size or aggression, but on something the Conclave's xenobiologists called adaptive threat modeling. The Greth's ability to assess, learn, and respond to any defensive system it encountered. It had escaped its original enclosure 4 times before the current housing was constructed. It had done so, each time, without apparent effort and without apparent motive. It was currently sitting in the center of its enclosure, watching Elena Vasquez with small, bright eyes. She looked at it for a long moment. Then she looked at the ventilation strip at the base of the panel. Then she looked at the Greth again. "It got out through there once, didn't it?" she said. "Not a question." Karoth 7 paused. "That information is classified. It's in the posture." She watched it for another moment. "It's not aggressive, is it? It just keeps leaving because it's bored." There was a silence. "That assessment," Karoth 7 said carefully, "is not inconsistent with current xenobiological consensus." She crouched down until she was at the Greth's eye level. The Greth leaned forward. She raised her hand and held it open, palm up, fingers gently curled. The Greth placed one small limb against the glass opposite her hand. Then it lowered its head, pressing its forehead gently against the transparent steel, directly below where her fingers rested. Elena Vasquez smiled. She moved her hand slowly, rubbing small circles against the glass above the creature's head. The Greth closed its eyes. Karoth 7 looked at Prest. Prest looked at Karoth 7. Neither of them had words. She stood eventually, shouldered her bag, and turned back to the corridor with the same calm, unhurried expression she'd arrived with. "Sorry for the delay," she said pleasantly. "Which way to the council chambers?" Karoth 7 began walking. It took him 4 full steps before he trusted his voice. "Left at the next junction," he said. Crest fell into step behind them, and after a moment, in a very small voice, said, Ambassador, in your professional assessment, should we have warned her about the corridor? Karath 7 thought about the Vorkai pressing its snout to the glass, the drawl descending from the ceiling, the Tier 5 organism closing its eyes while a human rubbed the air above its head. No, he said. He walked on. I think, he said quietly, almost to himself, we should have warned the corridor about her.